All right, friends, welcome. It is week one, lecture one of Data Science Fundamentals. My name is Will. I'm going to be your instructor for these next 4 weeks. Today, we're really going to talk about what to expect, where this class is going to go, and sort of the different tools you have access to. In this class, it is not at all required, but it does help me if you guys keep your cameras on, because then I can see engagement. Now, if you're driving or if you are, in a situation where you can't keep your camera on, that's okay. But it does help me sort of see if I'm saying something and I'm getting a lot of really blanks, like a lot of blank stares. It helps me say, hey, is there, maybe there's something I have to go through again. I'll also be asking you guys to frequently be putting in the chat a one. A one makes means that it makes sense. So if I go through something and you're like, yeah, that makes sense, I'm not confused, you put a one. And then if something doesn't make sense, then you put a zero. But we'll get there. We're gonna become pros at it by the end of this time. Also, I would like to say, if you are joining us maybe on a phone or anywhere, just make sure that your name is in the like the user profile. That way, when I take attendance, because attendance is required, if it just says, for example, I see one iPhone, so I don't know who that is. And so make sure your name is changed, or message me individually on the chat and just say, this is so-and-so. That way I know that you're here at class. Awesome. Okay, so let's jump in, friends. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about the bookmarks that I would encourage you to save. No, obviously it's mandatory, but I'd encourage you to save. We're going to look at our stack schedule. We're going to look at this week's assignments and sort of already start out. You have assignments due this Sunday, so already starting you out there. We're going to do, I'm going to introduce something called the 20-minute rule and just sort of explain. It's a little mantra of Coding Dojo, but it's just a way, as you guys are walking through and learning this material, it's just something to keep in mind to kind of make you prevent you from going insane. If we have time, we're going to talk a little meta about what is data science, but I think I've skipped that for right now because I want to dive in and make sure that we're really jumping into code. We might talk a little bit about object-oriented programming, and we might practice in breakout groups. These are things just as we're going through this, we might do that. And if not, we'll do that on Wednesday as well. Cool. Okay, so important links to bookmark. Now you should, if you guys are wanting to follow along, this is in the chat. But if not, what you can do, here's our class sheet. It's also located in our Discord up here. This class sheet, before every class, I will post our lecture slides and the Colab notebook that we're going to be using. So if you guys do want to follow along either with the Colab notebook or the lecture slides, you can absolutely do that. The only thing is you will not have access to edit this. So if you did want to save this for yourself, especially with the Colab notebook, we're going to walk through, there's a couple things that you need to do, but specifically with this guy, what you'll want to do is, if I jump out of this, you're going to go to File. You're going to go to Make a Copy of Entire Presentation, and then you'll be able to edit it, right? So if you can't edit it, or you can't edit it because this is mine, but if you did for some reason want to add a note or do something to your own slides, you just make a copy, entire presentation. It'll save in your Google Drive, and then you should be good to go. The same thing is going to happen whenever we deal with our Google Colab. Let me go back to presenter view. Okay. So a couple things to bookmark. We've got our Discord channel, which is DS Fundamentals Will. Now you will be seeing that there are old messages in here. The reason is we keep you in the same Discord channel throughout the cohort. And that's because all of the material really builds on top of each other. And so things you learn in fundamentals, you will take and utilize in moderate machine learning, and for machine learning and advanced machine learning. And if you guys are in the 16-week program, taking in data enrichment. So we keep you in the same channel. That way, all of that material is there. I did mess up. I should have introduced myself. I just get really jazzed on day one. I really want to jump in. Let me introduce myself. And then we have some TAs in here as well. So I want to make sure that I introduce them and you guys have access to them. My name is Will. I'm going to be your instructor. I've been an instructor at Coding Dojo going on 2 years now. Love Python, love diving into Python, both on the web dev side and in data science. I really enjoy, especially this piece, this really, the fundamentals. I love teaching it because it is stuff that you are going to use throughout, whether it's machine learning. You have to have clean data in order to run good machine learning models. And so things that you're going to do now is going to be very, very, very transferable, whether you go to data analytics or you go into machine learning and AI. All of that's going to be really important. So I love, love, love teaching fundamentals. In our with us also, we have two TAs. We have Mandy and Ahmed. Mandy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Can do. So I myself graduated from this program back in October. So I've been in your shoes, and the program's changed a little bit since I went through, but believe me, I'm up to speed. It's definitely a program where you get out of it what you put in. So I really, attend everything that you can. Obviously, attend your lectures, attend the code alongs, attend office hours for both the instructors, the TAs. We're here because we want to help you. So in no means would you ever be a burden or anything if you ask us for help or come to us for clarification. So my schedule is changing starting next week. So as always, check the calendar to get the most updated list of who's available to help you.
Thanks, Mandy. Ahmed, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I wouldn't add too much to what Mandy said. Hi guys, I'm Ahmed, and I'll be your TA for this cohort. And I joined Coding Dojo last November, and I'm very happy to be here with you guys. And yeah, I would just advise you on the participation board because it's really good. It gets you going, and yeah, if any one of you had anything, just reach out to me on Discord, or you can check also the calendar.
Thank you, guys. Cool. So the way you would see them, let's say you did have a question. Whoa. Let's say you did have a question. You're going to go to TA, or you're going to go to Discord. And here you're going to see DS Fundamentals Will. If you don't have access to this, please email me specifically. Some of you guys didn't have the actual server invite link. So if you do need that, I believe I sent it out yesterday. But, if you don't see this, if you see something else, please let me know and I will, get it fixed for you as soon as possible. This is going to be a great place where you can ask questions. Now, what I ask is ask good questions. That doesn't mean like a quality of, confusion, but just messaging, I need help, isn't really conducive. It always begs a follow-up question of like, okay, well, what do you need help with? And so there is a right way to ask a question. No question is too small, but there is a right way to ask a question. So whenever you do need help, something like, I am needing help with this assignment, specifically this part. Here's what I've tried. And then leave it at that, right? Give us something, or give our TAs, instructors and TAs, we check all the Discord channels, give us something to start out with. And then the other side of it is, if you ask a question, maybe a TA is currently with another student, maybe one of your fellow cohort mates actually knows the answer as well. But because you asked a solid question and you sort of set it out in the ether, somebody can help you. So we, as a group, want to make sure that we're asking good questions, and we are here to help one another as well. So again, if you don't have access to this DS Fundamentals Will, if you don't have access to that, please let me know as soon as possible. Also, the learning platform is where you're going to be doing a ton of information. You're going to be getting a ton of material. You're going to be reading. This is where your assignments are. And so I have a lot more because I'm an instructor, but here is going to be your cohort, the fundamentals course. And just note that each week is divided and labeled. So week 1, so this week is all of this material all the way up to week 2, right? And so in this week 1 is all of your core assignments, all of your practice assignments, and all of your optional assignments. Just to go over, core assignments must be turned in. We're going to go through, when we look at the schedule, we'll look at the cadence of when it's supposed to be turned in. But in order for you to move on to the next stack, you must complete 90% turned in core assignments. Then you've got your practice assignments that are not checked, but really encouraged, because they build on. If you can do these guys, it helps you understand the core assignments. And lastly, if you are cruising through this material and it makes a lot of sense to you, or you have a little bit of a background, there's these assignments right here with the O. These are what we call optional assignments. These are ones, again, that if you've got the time, great. If not, you have access to the platform for 6 months after you graduate. And so you can always go back and do the optionals. So in terms of critical and most important, sorry, my dog's dreaming right now. Of most important, we've got core. Then we've got our practice, which again, I'd really encourage you to do, but they're not turned in. And then lastly is going to be our optional. On top of that, if you see these yellow books, that means that there is some material to read. So Google Collaboratory, that's what we're going to be using. And there's quite a few reasons why. But if you're wanting to read and learn more about Google Colab, it's in here. I would encourage you, and on our class sheet, I sort of list everything that you can read. And when we go through the class sheet, we'll look at that. I would encourage you to read as much information from the platform. We have worked really, really hard to make this platform something that really helps with your learning process. So if you don't read these, it's going to be a struggle. If you're just relying on the lectures, it's going to be a struggle because there's no way I can cover all of this in lectures. I cover all of the main pieces. And a lot of these just have things that maybe I don't cover in class, but we're going to talk about NumPy arrays, but maybe there's something in here that I don't quite say in the lecture, but it's really important for you to read it. So make sure you guys are reading through this material as well. So then you see we have week 2. There's a prep for belt exam. We'll talk about that when we get to the schedule. Week 3 and week 4. Now, one of the most important documents you will have, and I would absolutely say to bookmark this, is going to be our class schedule. Here, you are going to be able to find the Zoom link. So in this exact room right now, the Zoom link, anything we do with office hours, or if I do any sort of bonus lecture. So I typically will do a bonus lecture week 2 and week 3. That'll be occurring in this Zoom link. If you want to schedule a one-on-one with me, this is a great time. If you're struggling and you're like, hey, I don't know what's going on, or you just want to look through some of the code, maybe from a practice assignment, because I don't get feedback on those, you can schedule a one-on-one with me. So I would encourage you guys, schedule one with me. It is linked to my calendar. So if I have availability, you can do that. Yeah. So schedule one-on-one with me. Here's a group code review. So because our cadence for teaching is going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays, every Monday and Wednesday, you can participate in what we call a group code review. Now, what this is it allows us to get up to 5 students at a time and walk through any sort of material that you guys need. So if you guys wanted to go through a class assignment, or if you wanted to go through, one of the core assignments or something of that nature, practice assignment, you could get some students together. And then you click this, and here are the different spots. We already have 2 people signed up for 4 o'clock tomorrow. And then here you can see that there's 5 spots. So there's 2 different opportunities for you to join in and do some group code reviews. Again, this is with me specifically, but TAs are available. If these times don't work for you, TAs are available into the night. That way, you can still get your help even if I'm offline. Speaking of the TAs, if you look at the top here, here's going to be our TA schedule. This is all in Pacific time, so please note that. So if you're on the East Coast, just understand, add 3 hours.
They do have
But
our Google Calendar too. They can add.
We have shifted away from that. I found out yesterday.
Lame.
Yeah. Anyways, so here we have these different hours. So if you are wondering, like, hey, I've got a question, who's on, you could understand, oh, there is a TA on. We do have TAs every single day. So whether you work in the weekends or whether you work in on the weekends or during the after work, if you guys have other jobs, or in the morning, so there is plenty of availability there. Somebody asked in the chat, where do we sign up for the code review? If you want the group one, you just click this and they'll bring it here. If you want one with me, you click this and all the hyperlinks are right there on our Google Sheet. There's also some TA Zoom rooms. So if you're asking a question, they say, yeah, meet me in room 1. That's here, and room 2 is right there. And then if you guys ever just wanted to get together, here's a Zoom room that you could just jump into and is always open. So if somebody wanted to work together, but you didn't want to create a Zoom room, or you don't have an account that allows more than 45 minutes, that's available there as well. The big thing here is on this sheet, I will post, this is where I post the recording of every lecture. So tonight's recording will go here where it says live class, intro to data science and Python fundamentals. Here's where our lecture slides are going to be posted, and our Colab. And if I have any sort of solution file for us, Colab update. So anything we do in class, you should be able to see. But if maybe I don't get to everything, but I want to give you guys the solutions, I will post that here. Also on top of this is suggested, this is a suggested reading rate and assignment rate, meaning it is a suggestion that you read print, strings, and variables and simple math today. But if you don't do that, you're not behind, it's not due or anything like that. The deadlines that you have for assignments, week 1, because it's week 1, we give you a little bit more time. You have until Sunday at 11:59 p.m. to turn in all of your core assignments. Moving on after that, you've got Friday at 9 a.m. So that is your core assignments are due Friday at 9 a.m., weeks 2 through 4. But for this first one, we understand you guys get acclimated. It is Sunday at 11:59. Now, from an assignment perspective, you're typically going to have, for weeks 1 through 3, you're going to have 3 core assignments you have to submit to me. If you don't do all of them, or if you don't stay in compliance, and we'll talk about compliance here in a bit, then you will go on academic probation or means for dismissal. We don't, we try to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen. But if all I will say is, if you can't make this deadline and you've got a legitimate reason, like, hey, X or Y happened. If that's the case, communicate with me and I will always fight to extend or give you a little bit of an extension, or just like, I'll always be on your side as long as you communicate with me. If it's 11:30 on Sunday night and you go like, hey, I'm probably not going to get them done, there's not much I can do, right? So communicate with me, and then I will always fight for you guys there. Cool. And then last thing is, I have after this class, I will be sending out your feedback document. It looks something like this. This will be your specific feedback document. So as I grade every single assignment, I will go in and it'll just be for you. So, other people aren't going to see your assignment stuff. You'll just have access to yours. But with each assignment, I'm going to give you one of 3 statuses. Either it's going to be missing, meaning that I didn't get any sort of submission. B, it's going to say resubmit, means, hey, I see that you gave me a submission, but there was just some things that are foundationally incorrect. That doesn't mean that everything's wrong or everything has to be perfect. But if there's something that I'm like, I want to make sure that you foundationally know how to clean data or how to deal with missing data, then I will ask you to resubmit the assignment, or you'll get a passed. So if you get a pass, that means you're good to go. A resubmit, you have until Friday. So until the next due date. So in this case, like for week 1 resubmits, you will have until Friday of week 2. So when all of this deadline is due, you have up until resubmitting those assignments. Does that make sense? So if one of the week, let's say I ask you to resubmit the bakery assignment, I say, hey, there's just some things wrong with it. You'll have up until Friday to do that. I get every single assignment graded by at least Tuesday at noon, but Monday usually it'll be Monday is when all of them will be graded. So that way you'll have another 4 days. And typically a resubmit is very, very small. And I give you a little hint of, looks like you did this, maybe try this, resubmit it and let me know. I will send you an email at the end. I'll send an email every single whenever I get done. I say, hey, all of them are done. Please check your feedback document. If you have any resubmits, please let me know immediately. And I try to over communicate with you guys. Just a heads up, you're gonna get a lot of emails from me, but I think communication is key. Cool. So that's your feedback document. When I send that email tonight, make sure that it says your name up here and it says your name right here. If it doesn't, email me immediately. I checked it like 4 times today, so just want to make sure. So it should be good to go, but please let me know if that's not the case. Any questions so far? Where do we access the feedback document? Yes, I'll send that through an email today. Somebody asked, where do you submit the assignments? Great question. Here on the Learn platform, if you go to an actual assignment right here, you can, so here's our core assignment. Here's where you will either drop in a file, add a GitHub link, or another link. I would ask that you download the file, don't put the Google Colab link, because what will happen is if you don't share and update the permissions, I won't be able to see it and it'll be counted as a missing. So my encouragement would say, I would say download the file, put it here, and that's easy. Or if you add it to GitHub and it becomes public, if you do feel comfortable doing that, then you can add a GitHub link. That's great. I would just ask that you don't do a Google Colab, because unfortunately, if I don't have access to it, I have to count it as missing. So either download the IP, the notebook, the Python notebook, or add it to GitHub right here. Great question. Whenever you submit the file, it's going to be in an IPYNB, which is the Python notebook. I'll show you exactly how to do that today towards the end of this class. When we jump into actual code, I'll show you how to download that. Perfect. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Thanks, Mandy, for answering some questions in the chat as well. Okay. I know that this is like a lot of information, friends. It's never going to be this heavy at the beginning. It's where I love to code and I love just to jump into code. And that's what I find really fun. So if you find this boring, I get it. It's like orientation. So just bear with me. Here's a little bit of a breakdown for your program schedule. We have two different programs currently running, our 12-week and our 16-week. So if you are part of the 12-week, after the 12 weeks, you will graduate and you'll be done. If you are part of the 16-week, just as soon as you guys are going to be together all the way through the end of week 12. And if you are in the 12-week, you just graduate. And if you are in the 16-week, you'll just continue on learning about data enrichment. If you find yourself really enjoying this and you decide, you know what, I do want to move, not just necessarily really enjoying this, but you decide I do want to go ahead and learn data enrichment. It's a great thing with dealing with databases, hypothesis testing, and learning like SQL queries. If you wanted to do that, you can always upgrade basically to the 16-week. You can do up all the way into the end of week 12. So you don't have to do it anytime soon. So you have plenty of time if you guys are wanting to upgrade, you totally can. Again, here's our daily stack schedule. Really, I'll put this in the chat. Make sure that you bookmark this, and it can be found at the top of our Discord channel as well. Any questions? Cool. Just an update, live classes are going to be, obviously you guys are here, so you know, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. This is going to be for your entire cohort. So if you guys do need to adjust your schedules for work, it's not going to change unless you have to do a retake. If you do have to do a retake, then it might alter. Depends on the timing and when you decide to retake. But Tuesday, Thursdays from 5 to 6 is going to be when I am teaching. Sometimes I go a little bit over, depends on how much of the material we're going through. I try to really keep it within the hour and 15-minute mark for sure. Once we get to an hour and 15, I will always start tailoring down. We do have office hours 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after class. So that means that basically I'm here until 6:30. So if we do get done early, if we get done at 6, I'll be here for 30 minutes to answer any sort of questions. If we get done at 6:15, I'm not super strict. Like if you have a question, I'm here to, I've stayed with students a little bit later. Now, if that became a habit, that might be more of an issue and we'd schedule a one-on-one, but I don't have like a 6:30 hard cutoff to where if you have a question, I'm like, peace, I'm out. Always try to help. So, I'm always here. So 30 minutes before class as well. If I do deem it to be something important, like today we talked about NumPy arrays, I will record that. I will also put that recording here where it says lecture room open for QA. That's where that recording will go. And I'll basically rewrite this and say office hour dash NumPy arrays. And that's where that specific recording will be. Again, we talked about group code reviews. Those are Monday and Wednesdays. They're 30-minute group code. Group sessions, absolutely optional. You don't have to do a single one of them, but recommended, especially just for going through code and making sure that you are on the right track versus week 3 panicking and being like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Delta exam. I would say jump on as soon as you can. And you guys are paying for instruction. So like use me basically, like, go and get your money's worth. I'm good with that. Okay. Again, talking about communication, we are mainly going to be using Discord. If you Discord and you can write like @ and then instructor will, and that'll notify me that you're talking specifically to me. I do also answer emails, not necessarily like super fast, but if I see an email, I acknowledge that. I don't have Discord open all the time. But if if it's super dire, email me and put urgent, and that is probably the more efficient way. Like if you really have something you have to know right now, if you in the subject line put urgent and then you email me, I'm a slave to my phone, so I'm always checking email. So if you guys do want to, or you can communicate Discord as well. And TAs, if it's a generic question, TAs will be there for you. If you do have any questions or concerns about the curriculum or program or policies, please contact me. I want to do everything I can to make sure that this is a really good experience for all of you. So if you do have any sort of issues, feel free to reach out to me always. I'm happy to meet, always happy to talk and maybe explain why we do something the way we do it, or explain, anything that you need. Each week, each lesson, I will always start with, hey, don't forget, this is what you have due. You guys should have received an email yesterday that says this week in fundamentals. I will send that every single week. I love to always just remind you. That way there's no, surprises or like, oh no, I forgot. I always try to do that. So each lecture, I will start out by saying, don't forget, here's your assignments. So this week, you've got 3 assignments due: Bakery NumPy exercise, Project 1, Part 1, distance and time. My encouragement is this: Bakery NumPy exercise is the hardest assignment of the week. So it's also the first one. So if you find yourself really struggling, move on to Project 1, Part 1, move on to distance and time, and come back to Bakery assignment. Bakery is sort of notoriously one of the harder assignments. It's really good. You learn some really, really good things. But if you're panicking, it's great to step away and then come back to that assignment. Which brings me into the 20-minute rule. So when you begin to struggle, this is a sort of mantra of Coding Dojo. When you try to rely on yourself first. So if you don't know something, you're going to be bad at this to start. Like at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And so spend 20 minutes trying to solve a problem on your own. I read a statistic, I don't know how true it is, but it was that you retain 10% of what you hear, but 90% of what you figure out for yourself. I don't know if that's actually true. I don't know how you really do that, but I think that it holds weight and value, because things that I have figured out for myself, I remember, oh, I figured that out. And oh, also I know what that is. Versus, somebody just telling me, this is how you do it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I put that code in and I leave and I'm like, wait, how do I do that again? So spend 20 minutes trying to solve the problem on your own, utilizing your own wits, your notes, your internet resources. We jokingly say, but this is very true, part of the job is being a good Googler. And it sounds silly, but learning how to Google, and I will often, if you guys ask me a question that I don't know, I will just Google it. Or even if I do know and I want to show you how I would look up documentation, oftentimes I will do that. And so just to show you how to utilize your internet resources, if you get to a point where you're like, I have spent a genuine 20 minutes, not just kind of poking around, but really trying to figure this out, and I can't figure it out. After 20 minutes, I would ask that you ask at least 2 of your cohort mates, or put it in the ether of Discord. Hey, here's what I've tried. Here's what I've looked up. Here's my issue. That will A, help everybody learn, and B, that will help it'll help everybody learn. And if somebody does know, then maybe they can come and help you immediately. And then third, you sort of ask your TA or instructor. That's 2 and 3 are sort of together, to where if you post in the Discord channel, if a TA gets to it, they can get to it. And if not, cohort mates might be able to help you as well, or an instructor. And again, while you're waiting for assistance, like if the bakery assignment's really difficult and you're stuck there, move on to Project 1, Part 1, or move on to the next reading until somebody responds, or else you're just going to sit there and sort of waste time. So I would really encourage you to make sure you move on to something else. So the key is to strike the perfect balance between taking it upon yourself to develop strength through struggle. That's sort of one of the mantras of Coding Dojo. And then also knowing when to ask for help for the sake of efficiency. There's a horror story that I heard. I don't think it was one of our graduates, but somebody got a job at Microsoft. I was in another little program. Somebody got a job at Microsoft, and this was on the dev side, but they had an issue on Monday, had a bug, spent the entire week trying to figure it out. And on Friday at their stand-up, the person said, where are we at with that? And like, I've been stuck here since Monday. And the boss literally looked at them and said, you've been stuck since Monday. Who did you ask for help? And they said, well, nobody. And they got fired on the spot. Now, I know that's dramatic, but it's the idea of nobody expects you, whether you're in data science, whatever role you go into, nobody expects you to know everything, right? So it's striking that perfect balance of, are you able to figure things out? But also if you need help, go ahead and ask. So start practicing that now. So whenever you get into the workforce in this specific role, you can do that. Last thing I have to talk about, and then we're going to jump into some code, is our stack progression. Now, there's some things I want to make abundantly clear, and then I'm going to look at the questions in the chat here in just a second. Things I want to make abundantly clear. These are the things you must do in order for you to move on to the next stack. You must attend 80% of lectures. So that means you can't miss more than one live class. Now, if you've got something, that really, like, somebody went to the hospital, or, you have something that already right now, I'm not going to be able to make this class. Again, communication with me, and I can work on trying to get that excused. Or if you have just some sort of wild thing, let me know. But if you just don't show up to class, it's going to count as an absent. So if you have 2 of those, even if, let's say, on Thursday you can't make it, and then on Tuesday you can't make it, you already have to retake. There's nothing we can do, right? So make sure you communicate with me. This is from a compliance standpoint. This isn't even like a coding dojo rule. It's in order for us to operate as the US and towards accreditation. These are things we have to withhold. These are parameters we were given. So yeah, so it's not like coding dojo just really is crazy about this. So it's 80% lecture. Again, if you miss more than one class, you will have to retake unless there's a reason. Number 2 is 90% of core assignment submission. This also includes resubmits. So 90%, sorry, my finger keeps touching this. 90% of core assignment submission and resubmits if needed. So 90%, if you're here, there's 10 assignments. All of these, or 9 out of 10 of them, must say passed. If we get to the last day and you've submitted everything, but you have 4 pending resubmits, those don't count as a completion. So please note that any pending resubmits do not count as a completion for core assignments as well. So really take that serious, because I don't want to, you've passed the exam, you've been to class, you submitted everything, you just have 2 outstanding resubmits that you just didn't turn in and you have to retake. That's a bummer. I don't want that to happen. So please note that. And lastly is you have to have a passing score on the BELT exam. We're going to talk more about the BELT exam when we get to week 3. It's out of 10 points. We're basically going to give you some data. You're going to have to clean it, manipulate it, and visualize it. And so you have to have a passing score. Anywhere from 8 to 10 is a passing score. It's not like there's an A, B, C, or D. It's just 8 to 10. Anything below an 8, it does require a retake of the BELT exam. You get two attempts. Basically, there's 2 waves of BELT exam that you can do, but we'll talk more about that when we get to the week 3. Again, what I want to make abundantly clear is if you have to have all 3 of these in order to move on. If even one of these is off, this course requires a retake, and that is a $500 fee. So you can retake the course. If you get this and you're just really struggling, there's retake is available for you. You get up to 2 retakes for the entire program. So if you're in the 16-week, for every single one of them, it's not 2 retakes per stack. It's just 2 total retakes. But a retake does cost $500. So again, I want to be abundantly clear about that. Here's the thing. I will always, that's why I over communicate. Money is $500 is a lot of money. Don't want to make anybody have to do that. Any questions on that, or any questions so far? Okay. Manny put a great statement in the chat where with each stack, you're going to receive one of these calendars that has all the information for it. So from your next one, Sherlyn will be giving you another Google Sheet, but that'll happen week 4 when she unlocks all the material for you. Somebody asked, are we limited to 2 retakes, or are there special cases for additional ones? 2 is the max we can do. And again, that's a compliance thing. Our hands are kind of tied there. Any other questions before I start jumping in code on operational stuff here? Again, this is super duper heavy on the slide piece and us going through slides. We're typically going to be doing a lot more code alongs. Like where I'm like writing code and you guys can write with me. That's how that's how I feel like students learn more. But if you are the type that likes slides, let me know. And I can always make sure I try to find a balance of the way students learn. Somebody asked what code is being reviewed tomorrow at 4. I don't have anything yet for the students that did sign up. Typically, again, that group code review we can either do part of the core assignment together, or if you bring something to me, then I can do that. So somebody asked that, what is the code being reviewed tomorrow? If they don't have anything, we'll probably walk through like distance and time or one of the practice assignments as well we try to do it to where I don't do all of the like core assignments. But maybe we'll do like a practice assignment that can translate into your core assignments. Cool. I also do ask if you schedule a one-on-one with me or a group code review, if you can't make it, the earlier that I know, the better. Just please don't be, 5 minutes or 2 minutes before and then cancel, because it takes up a spot on my calendar, and I'm not like super busy, but we've got quite a bit of meetings the other day. And so that could have been time that other students could have been in there, or I could have had other meetings. So any other questions on operations? I know this is the most boring part of the entire program. So any other questions? Okay, great. Okay, so now we are going to move into actual code. But if we want to submit our practice assignments and feedback, would you be willing to do that? Great question. I currently am going to have 90 assignments to grade plus resubmits. So I don't have the transparently, I don't have the capacity to grade practice assignments, but somebody asked not to put more work on you, but if we want to submit our practice assignments for feedback, we'd be willing to do that. You're more than welcome to jump into schedule a one-on-one with me, and we can walk through those together there versus me grading every assignment, if that makes sense. Great question. But creating one of these one-on-ones with me, this goes straight to my calendar. Once you do that, I can, so if the way Calendly works is you just pick, and here are my availabilities tomorrow. So here's the 2 slots I have throughout my entire schedule. Or on Thursday, you can pick some different times, click on that, and then it will, we can have 30 minutes. So if you click this, it'll say confirm. It'll put a meeting on my calendar. It'll send you a Zoom link. You'll just put your email. Like if we walk through this, you just put your name and your email, anything that will prepare you. If you guys do have questions on an assignment, that way I can sort of prep and have everything ready. That helps. Or anything you need to prepare. So that's how that would work. Somebody asked, do you recommend doing 2 group reviews a week, or is 1 enough? Because I know there are limited spots available. I would say 1 is enough. Again, that's super optional. If those times don't work, you can schedule a one-on-one with me. It is just a time that we can get together. You can learn with your cohort mates, and we can go through like a practice assignment. Like we'll probably do like calculating mortgage practice or FizzBuzz coding tomorrow. So totally up to you. Great question though. Okay, great. So here is our Google Colab. So here's where we're going to typically be. Now, I'm going to put this in the chat for you. As always, this is in our group or our class schedule. It's going to say Colab book. You'll see that's already preemptively there. But this is Google Colab. Now, we're going to talk about mounting our drive next week when we deal with pandas. But a couple things to note. If you are wanting this, if you're wanting to follow along with me, or if you're wanting to edit this, you don't have edit abilities. What you can do is come here, file, save a copy in Drive. If you do this, it'll make a copy for you, and then you can edit this. So if you did want to code along with me, you can totally do that. You can totally do that there. So file, save a copy in Drive. The reason we use Google Colab is because everything we need comes with it. So every single thing of Python, we're going to look at when we start looking at libraries. There's something we can run that'll show you every library that's already downloaded on Google Colab. So even if you don't have the most powerful computer, Google Colab gives us RAM. It gives us everything that we need to operate. So it does it in the cloud for us. So this is what we use. There are other methods you can use. So if you did want to explore, you totally can. I will be using Google Colab, but if you wanted something like a Jupyter Notebook, you could also do that as well, just in your own personal way. And if you wanted to save something, you say file, you go here as save. And when you save it, oh no, sorry, file download IPYNB. That is a Python notebook. So do the IPYNB, you download this, it'll go wherever you say to download, and that's what you're submitting for your assignment. Or else it's just going to give me a Python file, which isn't so bad, but do it as a notebook. Okay. So we're going to just do a very, very brief introductory for the next 20 minutes on Python, on vocabulary. Now, there was a Python basics course before this. That is going to cover some of the very, very, very basic stuff of like, here's declaration of a variable. Here's the different data types. Also on our platform, we do go through that material as well. So here in our fundamentals piece, you can see different things such as lists, right? Where it talks about, well, what is a list? Here's a video, here's how it operates. So we do go more in depth with that. Strings, which is a data type. We're going to talk about that in a second. So if you are wanting, I'm going to go through a brief overview, but if you're wanting a little bit more in-depth pieces of like remainders and multiplication, you can go through that here and look at like simple math with Python. So going through this, a variable is just a piece of data stored in memory under a specific name. So if I want to make a variable, I give it a variable name. In this case is str_var. Str in this case is representing a string, but I'm just declaring the name and then the value it has. There are different data types within Python. We've got our primitive data types, which is our strings, our integers, and with that, and then also something called a Boolean. Then we have our more complex data types, which are going to be our lists, our dictionaries, and our tuples. We'll get to that in just a bit. Here is how I declare a variable. Now with a string, I say the value. You can think of this as like any sort of text. There's two ways I can do it. I can do it this way, where I've got a single quote, or I could do it this way, where I do a double quote. Both of them are fine. Both of them work. One of the benefits of doing a double quote is if I wanted to say something like this, this is Will's string, because I have this apostrophe in there and I have a double quote, that works fine. If I were to have these as a single quote, Python is going to interpret this as the end of my string, and then it doesn't know what to do with this end right here. So I like to always just get in the habit, typically, of doing a double quotation, and then it allows me, if I do have an apostrophe within my text, it allows that and it won't break it. When I talk about this is a Boolean, boolvar, a Boolean is either true or false. So it either is going to be true in Python, it's this way, where it's a capital T, or it can be false with a capital F. If you do it, it is case sensitive. So if you do it here, it doesn't know what that is. When we talk about conditional statements on Thursday, we're gonna really understand the whole point of a Boolean. But just knowing that a Boolean is either true or false. And then if I've got an int variable, I can just do any sort of number. 8,945. This is what we call an int. If I were to, and this is just sort of an important thing to know, if I were to add in a decimal piece, that now becomes what we call a float. So we've got our int, and then let me just do a float var. This float var is now going to, that is, this value right here is now a float. Any questions on declaring variables and the different types of primitive data types? Alexander, yes, a float is part, it's like a number would be actually the more general primitive data type would be numbers. And then in that is integers, floats, and then complex numbers.
Hey, well, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Oh yeah, so my question is this: if you don't declare a type, let's say you type a whole bunch of numbers, would it default to a specific variable? Would Python automatically default to a variable in that case?
So you mean if I just put a bunch of random numbers here? So if I were just to say, like that?
Yeah, pretty much. So, like, if you were to just like type in like a bunch of like random numbers and you don't declare like a variable type, would Python automatically default it to like integer or float or something like that?
No, great question. So if I just have this random string, it's just going to say, I don't know what this is, right? You're not declaring any sort of variable. It's going to give me an error there because it doesn't know what this value is. It doesn't know what to save that as. Now, Python is an interpreted language, meaning that we don't have to declare the type in my variable. Like I could just say something like unicorn equals 7. I don't have to say that this is, I don't have to declare that this is a number. Python will just interpret and say, oh, this is a number. But if I were just to put some random, like string, it doesn't know what this is. It's going to say, I don't, what is that? It'll give me an error.
Okay,
Make
got
sense?
it. Thank you.
Does that make sense, David?
Yes, it did. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Cool. Any other questions on declaring these? We're going to look at the complex here in just a second. Any questions on declaring any sort of primitive types? Cool. Now, when we deal with this, when we're dealing with our code, we're going to, especially whenever we get to sort of week 3 and week 4, we're going to create functions that can do certain things for us. And what a function is, it's a self-contained block of code that accomplishes a specific task. So we can create a function, or there are functions / methods within Python that are already created that we have at our fingertips if we want to use them. So for instance, right here, this type, and I do this parentheses, this is a function that Python already comes with. It's built into Python that allows me to see what type this specific variable is. Here it says str because this is a string. So what we do is we call, this is a function call, and then it takes in a parameter saying, well, what am I, like you have to pass in an argument. What do you want me to tell the type is? In this case of this variable, str_var, and then it'll say, oh, okay, that type is a string. Now we could also declare functions and write our own. So the way we would start that is we would say def some function. And all this function is going to do is it's going to print hello. So let's break down what I just did. This def tells Python we are declaring a function. So declare function def. Here's the function name. Now in Python, we use something called snake case, meaning that between each word, we do an underscore. You can sort of think about it like Python snake sort of makes sense. So anytime if I wanted to call this some random function, I could say some random function. Anytime we are separating, we don't put spaces in our function name. We use something called snake case. Then what I do is I have my parentheses. And if my function needs something, we're going to learn more about this as we continue on. This is just a very basic overview. If my function is needing to, take in something to operate, we would pass that in here. In this case, we're not doing that. I'll do that here in just a second. So this is empty, saying this function can run at any time, right? It doesn't have any sort of, in order for me to run, you must give me this. It doesn't have that because this is empty. Then we have our colon. On the next line, Python, the way it works is it uses something called a code block, because it doesn't do any sort of curly brackets to encapsulate any code. So the way that Python knows that a line of code is associated to a specific function is you've got a code block, meaning that it's got to be indented in. So here we have this indentation. This indentation says this piece of code belongs to this guy right here. If it's not indented, then it's not going to be associated to this function. Does that make sense? So here I've declared some random function. We told it when this function is called, we want to print hello. We haven't called that function yet though. So now if I say some random function and I run this, it's going to print hello. So this function is a piece of code that we typically are going to want to use more than one time. So yeah, so anytime we're going to want to like read, if we find ourselves redoing the same code, it's a great idea to create a function to do that. But know that we can create and declare a function, but it doesn't run until we actually call the name of that function. And we use these parentheses to do that. Does that make sense? Can you guys put a 1 in the chat if that makes sense? Cool. Somebody asked if you can do camel case. Totally up to you. Typically in Python, you're going to see this camel case is going to be associated with like a JavaScript, especially I know, Alex, you have a web development background or a computer science. So I would say from Python, I would actually get used to doing this because whenever you're dealing with Python, if somebody's looking at your code, typically in Python, you're going to use this right here versus a camel case. For anybody wondering, that'd be like if instead of some random, you had it like some random function. That's just a different type. So if you see that, that's just another same sort of declaration, same sort of name. But with Python, we typically do snake. So up to you, but I would actually lean towards this because that's typically what you're going to see in Python at least. Cool. Any questions on functions? Okay. So now I want to talk about some of those complex data types where we've got lists, dictionaries, and tuples. Now a list, if you guys were in the office hour, you saw, a list is a type where we can, or it is a data type that allows us to sort of gather together a bunch of different values. That could even be of a different data type. Meaning here, I've got this list var. This is just a variable. It could be unicorn. It could be whatever we wanted it to be. Then to declare and tell Python, this is going to be a list. I've got the square brackets here. Then I can do any sort of value that I want, whether it's a Boolean, whether it's a string, whether it's a float, whether it's an integer, it doesn't matter. You can do all the different types in there. But the way I do it is I separate each value by a comma. So by me separating by a comma, it tells our Python that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 values here within my list. If I were to run this, I can see that this is type list. But one thing to note is in a list, it is indexed in a certain way. So let me pull up my annotation. What I mean by index is our list assigns a location to each value. From a list perspective, why am I not able to draw? Oh, there we go. This value right here is at position 0. Number 4 is at position 1. Cheese is at position 2. And 19 is at position 3. So, oops. So with that, I'm going to clear that, sorry. So with that, if I wanted to select cheese from my list, then what I would do is I would say list var. So that is the variable that's holding my list. And then we saw that this is 0, 1, 2. So then I would say list var of 2, and that's going to get me the value at that index. In this case, is cheese. If I wanted to get 19, I would say list var of 3. And that's going to get me the number 19. So just know that with your list and your tuple, you can you can identify a value based on its index position. Does that make sense? A tuple operates very similarly. There's one big difference. Instead of the declaration of a square bracket, we declare that with a parentheses. But same sort of thing. If I wanted to get the second value, it is indexed the same way. The difference between a list in a tuple is our tuples are what we call immutable, meaning that once they're declared, you can't change them. A list is what we call mutable, meaning that when if I wanted to change this value, if I wanted to say this at position 3 equals 89, I could, right? I could change that, and then I could say list var. And if I run this, now I've changed the value of 19. So the value at position 3, I've changed that to 89. And now you see my list represents that. A tuple doesn't allow that. So that's just something to note. List is what we call mutable. And then a tuple is what we call immutable. Any questions on mutability and immutability? Okay, and the last one I want to go over is a dictionary. Now it operates similarly in the sense of we can do different data types. Here I've got a string, here I've got a number, here I've got another string. But instead of indexing it by a positional argument, instead of indexing it as 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, instead of the index, we have something called a key. These are called a key value pair. So here is my key of name. That's a string, it's name. And then its value associated with my key is going to be Will. The key of age is going to be, the value of that is 29, and the key of location is Seattle, Washington. So this is a dictionary. Now, if I wanted to do dic var name, it's going to get me the value at the key of name. Now it is a little bit confusing because we use square brackets here. But if I am dealing with a dictionary and I'm wanting the value at this key of name, it's gonna get, I just pass in that value. Any questions there? I think that's where we'll end for today. Any questions on what we're doing right now?
So for the dictionary, I thought you said we weren't using little squiggly brackets.
Great question.
And
The squiggly
then,
brackets are for a dictionary, not for a function. The reason I say that is in other languages, if you've ever dealt with any other programming, if we declare a function, it looks something like this. It would say like, this isn't JavaScript. You would say some function. And then you would do something like this. And you would technically say console.log hello. Give me a lot of errors because this is in Python and this is an issue. But the reason, what I was trying to say, great catch there, Miranda, is in other languages, the way that your computer, the way that your program knows that this code is associated to this function is through what is between these brackets right here. Python operates in a code block. This is usually the biggest sort of confusion from people, to where it operates on indentation. So the way that Python knows that this code is associated to this function is simply by the indentation. As long as it's indented under this, as long as it's indented under this function, then it knows, okay, it is associated to this function. But if I were to say something like this, here, I've got some random function. I'm declaring this function. And then I also have this other value of print outside function. And it does that. because I didn't declare this, right? Or I declared it, sorry, but I didn't call it. I didn't call the function here. It told that, it said that this function has these lines associated to it because of the indentation. But the minute this line is not indented, it says, oh, this is new. This is different. It's not associated with this function. So let's go ahead and run that. So therefore it printed outside function. Does that make sense?
Mm.
A little bit?
Little bit. And then why were you using just the single quotes instead of the double quotes?
Oh, you can do either. They work just fine.
Okay.
I think this is from the platform, so I just snag that. But you can do either one. Either one's super acceptable for strings. So you can either see that this guy and this guy, just show that both are fine. So a dictionary, you can sort of think about it in the same way that when we declare a list, we have the square bracket that tells Python this is of type list. For a tuple, we have these parentheses that tells Python we are declaring a tuple. And with our dictionary, we have these curly brackets that's telling Python we're declaring a dictionary. Now it could look like this. It doesn't. I just indented it because it looked nicer. I could do this is the same thing. So instead of us having this, we're just telling Python, hey, we're declaring a dictionary. So that's just the curly brackets. That tells Python this is of type dictionary. Therefore, it knows to expect a key, a colon, and then the value associated there. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions, friends? Today was, again, a lot more of like the operation stuff. We're going to dive into code as soon as we start next week. So, or on Thursday. So we'll dive
I have
into
a
lot more code.
question.
Yeah, hit me with it, Ashley.
With dictionaries, I know that you could call with slicing the name. I mean, the key. Are you able to call the value and output the key, or no?
Oh, so you're saying I want to find the one where it has this value?
So in line 11, you called it via the key. So what if you were to write the value? So what if you were to put will it print out name is what I'm asking.
I don't believe it will. Nope, because
Okay.
this specific is a key. Now you'd have to create a function that basically there is a way to iterate through down here where we have the key and the value, and then we could say if value equals will print key. So you could do that, but we're going to go through iterables next class.
I just want to know if you could do it through that indexing.
No, because no, great question. No,
Okay.
you'd have to go through. Yeah, you'd have to iterate and basically loop through all of these values in order to do that. In the same way that I couldn't, for like a list, just put like list of 89, because this is just an indexing position in the same way a key is just an indexing position for a dictionary. Great question though. Any other questions, friends?
Yeah, real quick. Your quotations, single quotations, double quotations. For example, if you put dic variant with double quotations of name, is that going to give you an error or no?
No, it shouldn't. I
It's
think
the
it
same.
still is just type.
This
Yeah, it's
is
still type string.
okay. That's what I was wondering because you had multiple in the same line.
Yeah. Yeah, do that just to show that you can have multiple, but yeah, no, you could, it just, whether it has 2 or 1, regardless, the type of that is a string. So
I got you. Thank you.
yeah, of course. Any other questions, friends? It might feel like we're crawling, especially if you already have done a little bit of code. It might feel like we're crawling now, but we're gonna get up and sprint pretty soon. So just want to make sure we get our toes wet, and then on Thursday, we're going to sort of hit the ground running. So if any of this is super far, like if this is super confusing, couple things, I would encourage you, reach out to me, let me know. That's fine. I'm always here to help and walk through this. Give yourself a little bit of a break. This is all brand new. This is going to be hard. That's okay. B, make sure you're going through this material where you're talking about printing strings, and we talk more about what is a string, strings can be enclosed by either single or double. Or you could have like triple even, but that's a little bit too meta. How we can create a variable. So this walks through it here with you. There is different methods attached to string. We're not going to jump into that right now. But make sure that you are diving into this material. And lastly, if you still are a little bit confused, you should have access to the Python basics course still. Some of that is in there as well. So there is quite a few things for the sort of beginning part of this week. Really, everything but NumPy arrays is in Python basics. So that's what we're going to go over, NumPy arrays as well on Thursday. But it might feel like a little grind now, but that's okay. Communicate with me, communicate with your classmates, and we'll get you up to speed. Are there any other questions? We're 6 minutes over.
Mine's just functional. I'm still having issues with Discord if somebody wants to help me out.
Yep, I'll help you out.
All right, thanks.
Cool. I will stop the recording here.